All right, hello everyone. I am Michelle Reeves, the Director of Membership at Lean Jax, and we have James Bussell with us, our CEO, and
Good
Renea
afternoon.
Chandler is our guest speaker today. We're very excited about, and this is February's Lean Leader webinar. We're going to be talking about Ask Me Anything about Lean, and I'm going to read Renea's bio so you can kind of get an idea of her background and what the topics will be about. So Renee, growing up in Jacksonville, started working at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office after high school, and she left to obtain her education at Brigham Young University. And there she received associate's, bachelor's, and master's of public administration degrees. She also worked for the BYU Police Department and created a crime analysis unit for the Decatur, Illinois Police Department. She worked 37 years at JSO, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Areas of work included the Communications Center, Planning and Research, Manager of the Records and Identification Units, a Professional Oversight Unit, and Training Coordinator for Civilians. Her favorite assignments were Manager of the Crime Analysis Unit and Manager of the Continuous Improvement Unit. Renee's presented numerous times at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's annual Training Symposium and at other law enforcement conferences as well. She's spoken at various Lean conferences and training sessions. She's advised law enforcement agencies on the benefits of Lean for law enforcement. Various law enforcement agency representatives came to JSO, including myself when I was doing this, to learn this philosophy, including agencies from Florida, Indiana, Texas, and representatives from the LAPD. Now, Renee is now retired and enjoying life. She retired in 2021, and she's currently enjoying family, friends, and volunteer work and pickleball. So welcome, Renee. We're excited today to ask you a few questions in our Ask Me Anything webinar. And I guess I'll start off with the first question. So our first question we have is, can you discuss your roles and responsibilities at JSO prior to the agency's Lean journey?
Yes, that's when I was in crime analysis. I did that under Sheriff Glover. And so when Sheriff Rutherford came in, he made some changes and put people in different positions. And I was in the planning and research area. And in his second year, he had a 12-year term. He found out about Lean. I think he heard from Jerry Bussell about Lean, and they met together, and Sheriff Rutherford was really intrigued by it. And I know y'all have videos of him talking about it. And so that was the start of it. Now, the person who brought it to him, I believe, was someone who had attended one of y'all's trainings. It's like our employee's husband, and he might have been at JEA or something. And so when we found out about it, we started it, and then we started training with Lean Jax, and they were introducing it to us. And so we had about 2 members who went, and the training was really, really good. But Sheriff Rutherford really just has a passion for Lean, and we grew into that. The person who started it originally, she had another job, and so they put her back on that job because we needed to do this full time. And so we always had 2 people in continuous improvement. And like I said, before that, we were trying to do some nice things and do some innovative things, especially in crime analysis and in records and ID. But Lean took it to a whole new level.
That's great.
I guess this is a natural segue into the next question that we have here so you heard that they're going to pursue Lean and that you have a transformation. You had a couple people doing continuous improvement. How did you get involved with all of this?
The person who started it, whose husband's told about it, she picked me to help her out.
Okay.
And you really have to have a love for this. To me, if you don't have a love for Lean, then it's going to be a hard sell. And you really have to be a salesperson. And if I believe in something, I can sell it. That is not a problem. And I truly believed in this because it's just common sense. It's really common sense and some organization, some visuals, and then feedback. And so they put her back where she was supposed to be and brought in a police lieutenant. And so then he and I really started running. We hit the ground running. So the first thing we started to do was train all our employees. Well, JSO had over 3,000 employees, and that's a lot to train. And we actually started out with the Lean Jax presentation, and it was like an 8-hour intro. Oh no, that we knew that wasn't going to work for us. Yeah, police officers and people who work in law enforcement, their attention span is about like the size of a gnat, and that's way too long. So, and we had to dress it up. We had to do what I call JSO it, which means I took all the pictures out. I put in pictures of our employees doing various things and stuff like that. So they felt like they were watching JSO, and JSO was really buying into this. And so we cut it down to 4 hours, and then it's like, oh, this is still too long. And Randy was the lieutenant, and Randy likes to talk. I do too, but I think he could out-talk me. And so basically he would talk, and it's like, Randy, buddy, come on, we got to move on. We got to move on. And anyway, we got it down to 2 hours. We could give the whole introduction in 2 hours, and people would walk out of there more invigorated than if you kept them 4 and certainly 8 hours. You probably have to walk around and, tap somebody on the head or something. So you just have to make it work for you. And so that's how I got started, is that I bought in right away because it makes so much sense. And you wouldn't think that for law enforcement. Most people think manufacturing for Lean. No, we had Sheriff Rutherford there 12 years, and he started at his second year. So we had a great 11 years with him supporting us.
Yeah. So were you involved in any benchmarking of Lean cultures in different industries?
We did get some of that through Lean Jax, but benchmarking in law enforcement at the time, there was nobody doing it. And we were, I think, the second law enforcement agency that said, announce, look, we're doing this. And so we had to start our own benchmarking. And basically, we would just start with this is our current status. Now we're going to come in and we're going to do an event, which we called RIEs, which are rapid improvement events. Well, let me tell you, there's nothing rapid about them. You can call it that, but if you have to have a technical solution, it's not going to be fast. So basically, we were doing that. So our benchmarking was based on our data and how much we improved, because there were no other things out there. There were, of course, like Johnson & Johnson was out there, and Pilot Pen was out, and all kinds of airplane manufacturing. But for us, I think the Navy was also involved. For us, we just looked at our information and then started at ground zero there.
So you were kind of trailblazers, really, for.
Well, I really think we were, and the fact that we're a large agency too made such a big difference. Because in a small agency, that shouldn't be a problem at all. But when you have over 3,000 employees, that's a whole different ballgame. And we have 5 divisions. Basically, patrol was one. Investigations and Homeland Security was another. Corrections was one. Professional standards was our other department. And then finally we had services, which are like HR and supply and stuff like that. So you had to make it fit for all of those. And quite frankly, each group thinks they're the redheaded stepchildren and that nobody is listening to them. So multiply that times 5. And it really is, it's a communications. If you just listen to the employees, they'll tell you what's wrong. And most of the time, they'll have a solution.
Okay. So with this 2-hour training that you gave, how long did it take to get everybody trained, the 3,000 employees? Was it done separately by group, or did you do it kind of all at once?
It took us a year, and I think we only got 2,000 of the 3,000 trained. And that was okay, because we didn't have it mandatory, because you didn't necessarily want people who were going to fight you on it to be there and disrupt the class forever, although we could handle it. So I think it took us a year, and we got 2,000 employees trained.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that is good.
That would be like something, if you're sharing like 66% of people when it's not mandatory, I'd say it's pretty good.
And the good thing about that is that training is because it made so much sense. That's when they would come to us and they would say, we got this problem. So, we're too slow at doing this, or we keep doing this and it makes no sense. And so basically they would tell me better ways to do it. And I would leave every training class, I'm writing down like crazy. What are they saying? Okay, yeah. And then I was getting overwhelmed by all the people who were making suggestions. So we had an agency employee suggestion. It was up in planning and research. And prior to going to continuous improvement, I was in planning and research. And I got to tell you, we maybe got 1, 2, at tops, 3 suggestions a year. And nobody did it because it's like it just sat up there, nothing happened. So from this, we created an employee suggestion program. And by the time it was said and done, we were getting 700 suggestions a year, which is really nice. They weren't all implemented, of course, but if there was a way to do it, and a lot of it was just get the approval and go ahead because that makes sense. So you didn't have to have an event for everything. Some things were just, that's an easy fix. There's the low hanging fruit, grab it, move on, let's keep going.
What do you believe is the prime reason for that increase to get it to where they had it, and you said it was kind of an antiquated system, right? So like,
I think I don't even know how to submit it. I don't even know how it got there. I mean, I never saw a Dropbox or anything like that, and we certainly didn't want that in Lean.
Yeah.
So it's just like nobody really knew anything. It's probably why we only had 2 or 3 suggestions a year, because somebody finally said, well, I'll just send this to planning and research and let them work on it. Yeah. And I don't ever remember getting an assignment from a suggestion.
That I hear that a lot. It's like, we have an employee suggestion box. I didn't know that. You're like, yeah, it's somewhere, or you know what I mean? Like, it's news to people.
I will tell you that the smartest thing that we did, though, and this was Randy's idea, was in this employee suggestion, we made it from the top down. Because if it had to come from the bottom up, if I'm just a regular worker and I'm an entry level officer or a corrections officer or a dispatcher or something, and I've got to go through my sergeant, my lieutenant, my chief, my assistant chief, director, undersheriff, it's not going to see the light of day. It will get killed in the first 1 or 2 things. And we're not doing that. That's stupid. We tried this before. So we made it from the top down. And so the undersheriff saw them and then gave them to us. So with the top down support, you don't want to be the chief or the assistant chief that says, well, we didn't do that because I didn't want to do it. So that top down made all the difference in the world, because without the support of your CEO, your president, your sheriff, whatever you have, you're not going to succeed. And so with Sheriff Rutherford, we knew he had our back. In fact, we had one seminar we went to. It was actually, it might have been CALIA, which is for accreditation status. And we were all over across the street at the Omni. And basically what happened was, and Randy and I didn't know this, and we're like, gosh, we didn't even know that. So Sheriff Rutherford had been in corrections while Nat Glover was the sheriff. And so he knew some things over there. And our jail was getting a little overcrowded. And because of that, then you hit violations, you got to pay fines, or you got to release people. And so then they were talking about, well, we're going to build a new jail. Well, the jail was just built like 1991 or something like that. And now it's like 2009, and it's going to cost like $3 million. And the city didn't have that kind of money. So basically what happened is he gave it to corrections, and some of the employees came up with, well, in each cell we have 2 bunks, and they're one side of the wall, the other side of the wall. They put in a 3rd bunk above one of the beds, and that gave them something like 300 extra beds. And so we didn't have to build a new building for $3 million. We got enough beds in there, and I think it was something like 100,000, maybe 200,000. So a fraction of the cost. but Sheriff Rutherford, he didn't advertise it, and we didn't know. Randy and I heard that at this conference, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, we need to be talking about this." So, I mean, it's just a natural thing. When you empower your employees, they'll take off and run.
Wow,
That's
that's
so
powerful.
true.
Shell, you want to take the next question?
Yeah. We're on which one? Number 5, I think. Explain how the unit applied and adapted lean principles to a law enforcement agency, which I think you talked a little bit about. But did continuous improvement become part of JSO's mission and vision?
Yes and no.
Okay.
The mission statement that we had and that we had, I was fortunate. I started when I was 18 there. And like I said, I left a couple of times and came back and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure our mission statement was with the original sheriff, who was Dale Carson, when the city got consolidated in 1968. And so it did take a while. And but basically, our mission statement was a whole page long. And we had another training that we all went to, and the instructor asked, "Who knows your mission statement?" It's a page long. Nobody knows that mission statement. I don't think we changed it under Sheriff Rutherford. We may have, but I really think we waited until Sheriff Williams came in, and then we made it one sentence. And we've always had core values, and everybody knew the core values, but you did not know the mission statement unless you were studying for a promotion test. So did it impact our mission statement or our vision? Not officially, but it did later on. It did impact our vision because we knew we wanted to incorporate this. And even now, I look today at JSO's website, and it talks about Sheriff Rutherford and his things that he was successful in. And one of them was continuous improvement through the lean philosophy. So, not directly while he was there, but as time went on, yes.
Okay. For the next one, we have, what were the primary challenges and obstacles you encountered when introducing these lean concepts and philosophy to the law enforcement environment? You explained a little earlier about adapting the training, for the examples from within JSO, but what other challenges did you deal with to try to get this thing that a lot of people believe, is a manufacturing philosophy, because that's where it started, to get that to apply to something to where it hadn't been done very often?
Well, the challenges you're always going to have are there are people who are just naysayers, or there are people who's like, well, we tried that back in 19 and they come up with a year. Okay, technology alone is going to drive change. And we know that and we see that, but we just don't really recognize it when, change is being forced on you. So we didn't force it on them per se. We did not make it mandatory training. So then we just had to do that. And then if you have good training and you have people who can deliver the message and listen to the people and listen to their stories, then they're going to have more buy-in. And that's in any case. If you're talking to friends, if you're selling something, if you're about to purchase something, you have to listen to it and you have to hear what they're saying. So, we had people, especially some officers like, well, we're not going to do that. But then they started to see some good results because, maybe they told us something about it and we fixed that little process because this was an easy fix. And so really we got over that hump because of word of mouth and firsthand experience. And that's why we wanted to train the 2000 the first year, so that they could at least be exposed to it, see it as not a threat. A lot of people sometimes thought that, okay, lean is coming in and I'm going to lose my job because you're going to be cutting jobs. And it's like, no, we're not cutting jobs. But if we see that what you're doing isn't value added, then we need to look and see what else you can do to add value to the agency. If you're doing data input that's already been captured somewhere else, but you're spending your whole day inputting it into our local computer base, that's not value added. And so we had to convince them no one's going to lose their job. This is not about layoffs or anything like that. This is about you to feel more pride in what you're doing, because you know what you were doing is actually helping JSO, so that you could have been a dispatcher, or you could have been a person in ID who is reading fingerprints, but because you're doing that well and you know what you're doing, then this person got arrested and taken off the street. So we just tried to make them say what you're doing matters, and if what you're doing doesn't matter, then we need to stop that, and we need to see where you can add more value.
Yeah, that's good. How did you measure the success and the effectiveness of the lean initiatives? For example, the cost, quality, delivery, morale. How did you measure, or did you measure those things at JSO?
Well, the first thing that you cannot do is you cannot measure costs, because in government with costs, if you saved $1 million, then that's $1 million less you're going to get the next year. So we never put it in dollar amount, because that's just you cutting your own throat. So we knew not to do that. So the first way we measured this, and Randy and I came up with this one, and Randy, like I said, smart man, he came up with time saved. So we said how long it took the process at the beginning. And so from there, one of them was, we did something in the copy center, and we make millions and millions of copies of our reports. Now our reports were electronic, but still everybody had to have their paper copies, and the print shop would print out copies all the time. And then somebody has to go and distribute them. And then if you're not downtown at 501 and you're at a substation or something like that, now somebody has to drive in, pick up these copies of this report, drive them back out there. And usually here's what happened. They went in trash can. So we're making millions of copies, and we're transporting them all over the city. And then we get them back to where they're supposed to be, and they put them in the garbage. So basically, that was one of our first ones, and we got to change our contract with Xerox, because I think we saved something like $50,000 because we didn't need that many copies. Paper's cheap, but still, why are we wasting people's time driving around stuff that's electronic? Makes no sense. So we would do it by savings in time, morale. If morale always went up. It always seems to go up after an event, because these people now felt empowered. So we have listened to them, and we have come in there and we brought in other people, and it's better, and it's better for them. So that was always good. The little video that you have of Sheriff Rutherford talking about the sergeant that came in, that he was like 26-year veteran, that was true. And he would come into my office all the time after that now, because someone actually listened to him. And that's if we could get new people coming in because someone so said something, or I heard that y'all did this, that's how we would do it. And then we would also measure it in safety. One of our core values was always improving, and that had come since probably since Sheriff Carson, but certainly probably with Sheriff McMillan. And so with that always improving, we would like say, how can we make things better? And we would do it like that. So one of the things we're always improving on was 5S. It was 5S at the time. Well, we didn't like that. So, we're always improving. So we made it 7S. We added 2 more S's to what the 5S was.
46 right now. So
we had 7. What was your 6? What was your 6?
Well, one of the things whereas there's some criticism here, but we started with safety, and then I'll get some people, well, safety should be implied. I'm like, unfortunately, it isn't.
It is not.
It needs to be in all the other steps. What was it? I'm assuming so. That was one. What was the 7th at JSO?
The first, yeah, you're right. Safety was definitely the first one. Security was the second.
Right.
Because again, this was after 2001, so we put up barricades so a car couldn't drive on up there, and even when we walk around and we go to different areas, we had so many satellite stations. I think there was like 50 buildings outside of main headquarters that we had people at. And when you go to some of these, whether it was supply and evidence or it was SWAT or anything like that, now you're going in here and now you're seeing, they've got they've got a big long extension cord going across the room while somebody's walking. It's just so safety and security for us. And both of those we found so many ways to help. So always improving was like, yeah, we're gonna add 2 more S's to that 5S, and it's 7S for us.
And did that help the buy-in of the people?
I think it did. I think it did, because we did a lot of 7S projects, and and then we would show pictures of it, and everybody was just astounded because people pile up things and people get transferred a lot. So if you're in this area and you kept everything and then you don't need it, so that buy-in was a lot because you could physically see the difference there. And we had to do it since we were pushing this in our office. I mean, we really took it to the nth level. We labeled everything on our desk. So my desk, I had, and it sounds so stupid, but it was a good sales job. It's like it said stapler. And so I know where to put my stapler. So if my stapler is gone, so I put mine where you could see it. And then Randy would put his on top of it so that if he saw the word stapler, he knew a stapler was missing, because somebody's coming in your desk or so. So we just did it real simple like that. So everybody saw and understood. And I told you how much paper we have. We have file cabinets and just loads and loads and loads. We have booking photos. We have fingerprint cards. I mean, we have so much paper. But when you label it, that made all the difference. So that was an easy buy-in. And again, just everybody can see that. It's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And then you had the hoarders, too, and it's like, you go in and you can't even see their desk because it's just overrun with paper. And you're saying, well, where is it? I go, well, I know right where it is. I can put my hand on it just like that. And so I would always tell them, I said, well, that's good, but what are we going to do when you're not here? And so, you can't fight that argument. So you're just like,
Yeah.
and, some of them.
I'm sorry, I'm making notice 27 minutes in to share. This would resonate with a lot of people, I'm sure. This kind of thing. That, like, we actually do our success training and we use so many examples of just like what you're talking about as the ways. One of the things like I always say is like, oh yeah, it might be dumb to label your stapler, but do you realize how much time you're going to save if you know exactly where it needs to be? Like I actually did a study with myself one day. I'm losing 2 hours just looking for things that should be labeled right, so I'm a big opponent. That's what I'm saying.
You can take this stuff home, and we would tell them that, you got kids, you got a kid's room, let's see what you can do in that kid's room. And they'll come back and go, we did my son's room, and oh my gosh, now we can see things. We can actually see the floor and stuff like that. So again, it's just a sales job where you can teach them that if you do this, you're going to have the advantage. This isn't just something we're making you do. This is to make things better.
Can you talk a little bit about these RIE, the rapid improvement events, and what other target areas you had and some of the experiences with that? But you're saying those 7S was a big one. What other kind of methods did you use?
Well, the RIE is just the fact that we got police officers saying we need a RIE for this. That was huge. And like I said, the rapid improvement event, if there was a technical part, that's not rapid, because a lot of times we had to write our own programs and that takes a year and stuff like that. But we moved from an electronic report to a newer electronic report, and then we tried again to mistake proof those, have some things that you could put down so that you're not making all the mistakes. So, but the events themselves, they would last anywhere. We would have a RIE, or we would have a mini RIE, and a mini RIE we could get done in a day. And so we bring the people in, we would map out the process. we asked them, what are we doing? And they put it whiteboards after our office. And you come into our office and we're putting everything on the board. There were whiteboards popping up everywhere. So that's why I knew, okay, that's a good sign, because everybody now wants a whiteboard because they're drawing it out, they're mapping it out. So if we're doing an actual big value stream, we would take it up to 3 days, 4 if it was really, really big. But usually we would get it done in 2 to 3 days. If it's a mini RIE, we would get that done in a day, and they could go out of there with a solution, whether it was, but again, if it was a technical solution, not so much. But we also thought that if we can make this work with paper, then we know it's going to work electronically.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we committed to do, I think, at least, we said like 6 a year, but we did more than that.
How many people were involved on the team?
On a team, we would usually have, the whole thing would probably be less than 8 people.
And
8.
did you facilitate a lot of these?
Oh yeah, we actually facilitated all of them, and then we would now, after that, we started sending people back over to Lean Jacks to get facilitator training and things like that, and value stream mapping training, so that they could do it on their own. Because what we wanted to do was to, and it worked, is work ourselves out of a job, so that everybody is doing it. They know how to do it. They don't need to invite us, go ahead and do your own, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I always find that that's a sign that you're really good at, or you're doing a good job of what you're doing, is if they have the internal capability to whereas you're not as needed anymore. And that's hard for some people that do this kind of work to realize they want their hands on it. But to me, that shows like how the culture was great when you guys were doing this.
Yeah.
It was challenging, but like I said, it just makes sense. It's hard to argue that, like, I don't want to do this. It makes sense, but I don't want to do it. Then we're probably not going to invite them back again. We'll find again people who are engaged and who want to make a difference and who see the problem and who have solutions, because we never came up with the solutions. We would say, all right, now how do we fix this? And look at all this waste here. Again, we would say the other thing we would count would be time. This process took, one of our first ones was school crossing guards. And those are the people, who stand out there and hold the little signs so all the kids can walk across the street. And they're usually senior citizens or young mothers, whose kids are in school. Now they're helping them get out of there. And they were trying to hire them. Now, when you're hiring senior citizens, it's not a good idea to send them all over the city. So they'd have to come on down to 501 East Bay Street to our headquarters and get the application. And then they would get printed, get the fingerprints done. Then they would have to go to, we sent them all the way over to Monument Road to the police athletically, the POW building, because that's where the school crossing guard person was at. And then after that, you'd have to send them way over to like Baptist South to get a medical. It was taking over 114 days to get these people processed. And, it's not that it's a hard job, but old people are not going to wait that long. And, we might have even lost some due to death. Who knows? I don't know. It's taken way, way, way too long. And so we got that down to, I think we got it down to like 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Do you listen to
That's
people that you need to onboard people, other companies that we work with? Listen to that. It can be done.
Yeah,
Hey, Renee,
it
what
really
are some
can.
of your favorites? Your favorite RIEs that you did?
I was thinking about that, and gosh, I just don't know, because we did have such good wins. I think one of the things that came out of the employee suggestion again was this whole now group of administrators and employees and supervisors who now picked what we should do next and where we should put our resources, especially if there was a technical part of it. And we knew so that our tech people now had this priority. because everybody wanted something. And we didn't have enough people to do everything. Plus, we were trying to write a whole new electronic report, arrest and booking, and field interview, and so it's a lot. But I like that because the undersheriff was the chair of that, which again got us the buy-in. Because even when you're in there, there are going to be some people, I don't have the people to do that. But with the undersheriff doing it, heading that committee, and we met, I think, twice a month, and we would get things done. So I like the fact that new processes came out of what we were doing, because now we had lists of things to do. And if these were nice, easy, simple ones, then we would just work with those, knock those out, and get them done. So I like that. And I also liked, it's so hard because you think of all these ones. I didn't even remember about that copy center, which was good. Anything that you could show real improvement. And when we would go after that to see how much waste we could eliminate, we started at 50%. If we can eliminate half the waste, we're going to say it's successful. And it turned out most of the time we eliminated 90%. So I like all that stuff. It's just watching the people just enjoy their jobs more. And then we would go and visit them later and like, hey, come on, look what we done now. It's like, oh, this is great. Really fun.
Yeah, that's rewarding too. Yeah.
It is. I think for both sides, for us and for them, because it's a win-win. I call it a 4-win. It's a win for the individual. It's a win for the unit. It's a win for the agency. And the true win is citizens of Jacksonville. We did it better.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
They might not have seen the difference, but we did.
Okay, so trying to make sure we've covered a lot of this stuff. Oh, I guess the next question would be, because we hear this from a lot of members, and the challenges of budgeting and the resource allocation for continuous improvement. Can you explain like the impact of that in the law enforcement environment? I mean, I know that you said that the top leadership, was all in on this, but did that impact what you're trying to do in any way?
Yes and no. It does impact it, but the one thing one of the lessons I've learned is that if I were a law enforcement agency, and I speak this from experience, when I wasn't at JSO, when I went to Decatur, Illinois, to work at their police department there, I had to set up a new crime analysis unit, and now here I am, a female from the South going to the Midwest to tell those police officers what to do, is what they thought and heard. And the director of public safety was actually a consultant who worked, I met him in Jacksonville because when I was in crime analysis early on, he was in there, and I liked what he was doing and everything. So he hired me to come out there. So I went out there, and that's, I had to work hard, really hard, to get them on board. And it wasn't a big agency. They didn't have 3,000. I think they maybe have had like 90 officers, and they've all been there a while, and they're like, okay, we're going to teach you a couple of things. I went on a ride along, and those tall grass things you see out there, that's corn. And because ADM was there, and they do all kinds of corn processing, and there's little short ones, those are soybeans. So it's like, yeah, okay, guys, I know the difference between corn and soybeans. And it was harder, but I was able to do it, and I stayed out there 2 years, and then they put one of their employees in. My advice would be, if you can do it in-house, do it in-house. Find the people who have those skills. And if you don't know if they have those skills, you need to be on the lookout for that. Law enforcement, we're suspicious anyway. I'm a civilian, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Something's not right here. It's just not jiving. And so basically, I would say, if you could stay in-house with your people and do this, do it that way. If you have to bring in a consultant or something, that's fine, but have an understanding of where you want them to get. And one of the things that I always taught my employees was, I need to train you to take my job, because if you can take my job, then I can do something else. Because civilians don't get to move around like officers. You could go to patrol, you could go to narcotics, you could go to robbery, you could go to homicide, you could go to motors, so they got to move around. Civilians didn't get to move around that much. I don't necessarily think you need a police officer to do it, but I think if you have an in-house employee who understands it and is dedicated and excited about it, I think you could go that way.
Okay, makes sense. And that did I'm guessing the training help with that to build that capability with the people.
Yeah, well, that and just the hands-on stuff.
So if they were like
and
team, and then they
yes.
could that's how what we always say with the training, with facilitating events, is get on the team and then get the capability internally for the able to
and that's what I said, hold your own events and just let us know what you're doing so that we can count it, because that's really kind of what we counted as a measurement, was how many successful events did we have, what were the results of this event, and what did it save us in either time or energy or resources, but not money.
Not money. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good way to
Well,
get
we covered a lot of the questions on this list, so let me skip ahead. Let's see. How can organizations ensure that continuous improvement becomes ingrained in their culture? I think we talked a little bit about that, but
I think once you have successes, it becomes ingrained, but I truly believe it has to be top down, because again, we're on our sixth sheriff, TK Waters. I love TK Waters. He is good, and he has been very forward thinking and things like that. You have to have that top down support, because they're going to move and they're going to go away after their terms. And so basically, you've got to convert the majority of the leadership that's coming up. So we would grab sergeants and lieutenants, because we know after lieutenant, there are appointed positions. And so we would work with them. One of the guys we worked with, and we were over at felony registration, because felons have to register so many times and you got to know where they're at. And he was really good, and he's a director right now. And I think he has that mindset. And once they get that mindset, it's really good. But then they have to balance everything. So that's why it has to be from top down. But again, you can make the undersheriff or a director or somebody like that help you out. But I think it really takes that, because I don't know what they're doing now, if they even are. I know before I left, they came up with the POU, which is what was POU standing for? No, I can't remember. But professional oversight. And so that is still continuous improvement, but it's a new name. But again, it's still looking at, well, let's look at our officer involved shootings. How do we make that better? Let's look at this. How do we communicate, especially now, I'm sure they've been looking at all sorts of that. So you can call it anything you want to call it. You can call it continuous improvement. You can call it lean. You can call it POU, professional oversight, anything. But just the fact that somebody is thinking and doing and making improvements and making things better and making it more transparent, or whatever it is that you need to do.
We don't have this on here as a question, but I was just wondering too, you keep talking about the importance of the top level leadership, driving this. And can you talk a little bit about Sheriff Rutherford's role with this when he was at JSO, and like what kind of things were expected of him in order to keep it going?
I think the things that made it so successful was that he was the first buy-in. Once the Mr. Bustles from Lean Jacks came over and talked to him, and you see that on the video that he did for y'all. That was easy. So then it was just like, okay, you got to get the right people in there. And what we would do is we even got him to come and to a class that we were holding for supervisors to talk about it. And so that helps some. But then it's like, we can't get him all the time like that. So then we made a video of him talking to the employees, and that helped. But he talked it every time. We didn't have to remind him. Now, again, leaders are busy. He has a heck of a lot of things to do. We might hear the same stories over and over, but because he's got his stories that he likes, the ones that he knows he can just tell you about it and be all excited about it. But like I said, he didn't even tell us about those extra beds in the jail, but it's like, wow, that is cool. So it's just, if they know that they can use this as information to the citizens, here's what we're doing, here's how we're trying to make it better. This is his goal, was to become the premier law enforcement agency in the nation. And I dare say, I think we got in the top 5 under his administration. And so I think without his support, would have never happened.
Absolutely. That's very, very impressive. And from what we've seen, like, what we want to work with organizations that want to be great, right? And they can call it lean, you can call it, as you said, but are you doing something where you have a system for improving and like building your culture to where people want to improve? And so
Yeah.
I find that, but it's just like a lot of times what I love about the whole story of JSO and continuous improvement is, if you're striving to be great, you can be great. Like, and I think a lot of places are like that, but maybe they have the expectations are too low of what they can do. So that's why I was very excited to meet with you today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Again, we said, well, we're going to start at 50%, but we didn't stay at 50%. It hit 90 without us even having to do more. It's, again, you've got to have a passion about it. If you're passionate about something, then you're going to do it, and you're going to tell others about it, whether it's something from work, something about your family, something about whatever it is you're passionate about. It just emits energy, I believe. And then when people see that they actually make a difference, that by us staying in this room for 3 days and changing this whole process, that work is going better now, and they're not running and running and running and running. The process is smooth, it's flowing, and you can, transparency, you can see where the problems are. It just all, to me, it's just a nice, neat package that I don't understand why people don't want to do it, because it really is, it's just such a win-win-win.
Hey, Renee, I have a last question for you. Do you have any advice for an organization's lean leadership team and change agents that's considering becoming a lean transformation? So, do you have advice for those that are wanting to do this?
Yes, if you're just an employee or a mid-management has to be very careful, because mid-management, top down is going to work, bottom up is going to work. Now you're going to hit this mid-management, and that can sometimes be a jungle, so you got to make sure, because they want to move up, but they were going to have to succeed, and if you don't succeed, then you're going to move down. So basically, I would say, if you really want to do this, you need to find an advocate who's up high enough so that he or she can take this sales pitch and take it to the next level. It has to get to that top level. And whatever you can do to get it to that top level, I could go in to Sheriff Glover's office, or to Sheriff Rutherford's office, and say, here's our idea, can we, because I have to make an appointment and everything. I'm just not walking in or anything, but you got to lay it out. You got to have a plan, and you've got to understand, okay, here's my plan. Tell them what they will receive for it, because the way that we convinced the people early on when we first had that training is we had WIIFM, WIIFM. And basically it's what's in it for me, because when people see what's in it for me, they're more likely to help you. So if you're lower level, then get your advocate, and then, you know, keep staying with them and have them move on up, because people have to see, is it going to make their life easier? Is it going to make their job better, more fun? They're not going to lose their job. We're going to, you know, it's going to be better when we do this. So you've got to find, the personnel is important. And we only had 2 people the whole time. There were only 2 people in continuous improvement. And we were both civilians. Well, actually, it was lieutenants and I for a while, but then they had to put the lieutenants back out on the street. So it was me and then a clerical person. But that's fine, because with that support and backing, you can do it. But you develop a passion, develop a plan, sell the plan, and keep moving it up.
That's great, Renee. We really appreciate you talking about this. It's been very informative, very interesting. James, do you have anything else to add? Or?
No, I'll just say this is great, and I really implore people, like, I'm hoping. Well, I guess I don't need to do the sell if we're they're watching the I'm talking about, but I'm going to get this out there to as many people as I can, because I really think it will resonate. And this, I really find it impactful. You talking about just the what's in it for me is something, to me, I always think is kind of common sense, but I realize I don't always do it when I'm trying to get people to do things. And why will people want to do stuff if they don't know how it's going to benefit them? Because, you know, a lot of times I find that you just adding extra work to them is what they think, you know, and whereas you won't get that buy-in. So, I mean, I find that universal, the what's in it for me, and I actually use that same abbreviation that you, but I think that's like something to where I think a lot of people can take away with this, whatever organization or type of business or organization that you have. If you can get pull from people if you show how it's going to make their life easier. And I mean,
I completely agree. To me, this is, it's not even a sales job, because just talk about what's in it for them, how things going to get better. And like I said, get the backing and support. And you have to sell this stuff, but it sells in any type of industry, service, manufacturing, military. It doesn't matter. You know, accounting, everybody can use this. And, you know, and that was the first hard sell to get to Sheriff Rutherford, you know, because it came out of manufacturing, you know, and so it's basically, no, this works for processes. Whatever your process is, you can find better results. You can get rid of the waste. You can have transparency. You can have visuals that will show you, oh, something's off track here, because I'm seeing the stack when there should not be a stack. It shouldn't be piling up. It's I love it. You know, I'm gone 3 years out of it, and I'm still passionate about it.
I definitely comes up. And that's great. Michelle, do you have any other questions for Renee?
No, that was the last one that I had on our list of questions. So yeah.
All right.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, you guys. Thank you so much.
No, I mean, this is great, and thanks for taking your time, because I know even in retirement you're very busy. Busy, so it's just like, I will get this out to as many people as we can, but yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Like I said, anything for lean, I find time for that, because I just know what can come of it, and it's good things, really is. Thanks, you guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks, Michelle. Everybody watching. Thank you.